Welcome to Goal Journal's Football Match Review. Imagine standing in the Metropolitano, right?
Yeah.
60,000 fans just screaming, the atmosphere is absolutely suffocating, and your team's meticulously planned tactical system suddenly just turns to ash right in front of you.
Oh, yeah. It's the ultimate nightmare for a manager.
Exactly. And today, we're unpacking exactly how that happened and how it was ultimately survived in this thrilling, just chaotic 1-1 draw between Atletico Madrid and Arsenal. We are doing a deep dive into the first leg of their Champions League semifinal.
It really is a fascinating match to dissect, primarily because, well, we witnessed two completely contrasting philosophies just wrestling for dominance out there.
Yeah, totally different styles.
Right. I mean, we saw Arsenal's icy structural control in the first 45 minutes just violently collide with Diego Simeone's fiery tactical adjustments in the second half.
And we are definitely going to get into the massive battle of the substitutions and, inevitably the VAR penalty controversies that have completely dominated the post-match conversation.
Oh, we have to. That's all anyone is talking about.
Right. But to understand the absolute chaos that erupted late in the game, we really have to look at the environment that triggered it. Arsenal didn't just start well. They completely dictated the opening 45 minutes.
Yeah, they really did.
I mean, they essentially walked into one of the most hostile stadiums in Europe and muted the crowd.
They neutralized Atletico by completely starving them of the ball. If you look at the tactical setup, Atletico really struggled to generate any momentum because their attacking outlets were just severed from the opening whistle.
Right, because Antoine Griezmann and Ademola Lookman were completely isolated up front.
Exactly. And right behind them, player Simeone was aggressively locked down by Piero Hincapié. I mean, Hincapié didn't give him an inch of breathing room to receive the ball in turn.
It was suffocating.
Yeah.
And, the anchor to all of that control was Declan Rice. He was like a metronome out there, dictating the heartbeat of the game.
He was everywhere.
Yeah, operating as a number 6. He had, I think, the most touches of anyone on the pitch and delivered something like 10 to 12 line-breaking passes. But it wasn't just his passing range, right?
No, not at all.
It felt like he was playing the role of a bouncer at a club. By dropping deep between the center backs, he was physically checking Atletico's forwards at the door, making sure Arsenal's defenders always had an easy, unpressured escape route.
That positioning is, well, it's the defining mechanic of Arsenal's buildup. When Rice drops into that specific pocket, he pulls the opposing press entirely out of shape.
So let me ask you this then. Why was Atletico so passive at home? Was it Arsenal's brilliance or just Atletico's hesitation?
I'd say it's more about Arsenal's incredibly organized structure.
Yeah.
Atletico's midfield had to decide whether to step up to engage Rice, which, leaves massive space behind them, or stay back. And staying back just allows Rice to dictate the tempo unchallenged.
Right. Pick your poison.
Exactly. And alongside him, Martin Zubimendi played a really crucial role in maintaining that overwhelming possession.
Which is interesting because Zubimendi has been a little sloppy recently, right? Turning the ball over in some dangerous areas in previous games.
He has, yeah. But here, he seemed hyper-focused on ball retention. That discipline was completely necessary to build that structural shield for Arsenal.
But, territorial dominance doesn't mean total immunity.
Oh, certainly not.
Against players of this caliber, one tiny pocket of space is all it takes to upend the tactical script, which brings us to Julián Alvarez's flash of brilliance.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that moment was staggering.
It really was. Alvarez is trapped in an impossibly tight space inside the box, surrounded by Rice, Zubimendi, and Gabriel. It's literally a 3-on-1.
And he has nowhere to go.
Exactly. Yet he somehow manages this insane, lightning-fast footwork to weave through them and get a fantastic, powerful shot on target.
It was pure magic.
If David Raya doesn't have his angles perfectly covered to make a great save, Arsenal's entire first-half narrative just goes right out the window.
It serves as a stark reminder of the individual quality on the pitch, You can drill your defensive structure perfectly, but an elite forward can still manufacture a shot out of absolute nothing.
Right. But Arsenal survived that warning sign, and their sustained pressure eventually forced the error that led to the opening goal.
Yeah, and it starts with a mistake from Alvarez, of all people.
Yeah, he plays a really poor backward header. And, as a defender, a backward header from your own teammate has to be one of the worst things to deal with.
It's a nightmare. David Hanko suddenly finds himself facing his own goal, scrambling under immediate pressure.
Ball falls right into the path of Viktor Gyökeres. Hanko panics, pushes him in the back, and the referee points straight to the spot.
It is a textbook consequence of sustained pressure. When a team is pinned back for extended periods, mental fatigue sets in.
The brain gets tired before the legs do.
Exactly. That backward header is an unforced error, but it creates instant panic. Hanko gets caught on the wrong side of Gyökeres, and, well, when you are on the wrong side of an attacker in the box, literally any physical contact is going to be heavily scrutinized.
And Gyökeres steps up, converts the penalty, and Arsenal goes up 1-0.
Right.
So Arsenal marches into the dressing room feeling like they own the stadium. But, knowing Diego Simeone trailing 1-0 heading into the second leg at the Emirates is a tactical death sentence.
He absolutely had to change something.
So how does Atletico completely flip the momentum after halftime? Because they didn't just edge their way back into the game. It was like flipping a switch from a polite chess match to a heavy metal concert. The intensity skyrocketed immediately.
It really did. Simeone realized the fundamental geometry of the pitch just wasn't working for him. He was actually forced into an initial change because player Simeone was dealing with hip and back pain.
Right, so Robin Lenormand came on.
Yeah, but Simeone used that injury-enforced substitution as a catalyst to restructure his entire midfield.
He pushed Marcos Llorente much, much higher up the pitch, right? Like essentially operating as a right winger.
Exactly. And he gave David Hanko the freedom to push aggressively out of the defensive line and directly into the midfield.
Wait, I have to interrupt here because we constantly hear about Arsenal having this £100 million press-resistant midfield. Are they actually just fragile when a team decides to get physical and overload them?
I wouldn't call them fragile, but their system is entirely dependent on rhythm and predictable passing networks.
Okay, that makes sense.
When you apply a man-to-man chaotic structure, like Atletico did in that second half, you weren't just challenging Arsenal physically, you were breaking their communication. By moving Hanko and Llorente, Atletico severely disrupted Arsenal's passing lanes.
So they created a massive overload.
Exactly. Koke brought this wild, overwhelming aggression into the middle of the park. And when Koke presses with that level of intensity, it forces a player like Martin Odegaard to turn his back to the opponent's goal just to shield the ball.
And if Odegaard is facing his own goal, he obviously can't play those killer through balls.
Precisely. Gyökeres and the wingers are completely severed from the supply line.
Wow. So Arsenal's no longer playing football. They were just surviving.
That is the harsh reality of a Champions League semifinal away from home. When the structure breaks down, it becomes about individual desperation and resilience, and Atletico capitalized on that chaos, creating some massive match-defining chances.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Antoine Griezmann had a shot that looked absolutely destined for the bottom corner, and Gabriel steps up out of nowhere with a phenomenal goal-saving block.
A crucial intervention.
And then you have Ademola Lookman. Llorente whips in this brilliant cross. It falls perfectly to Lookman, and he has a glorious opportunity, but he fires his shot straight into David Raya's hands.
Yeah, Raya's positioning was excellent there, closing down the angle quickly. But honestly, a player of Lookman's quality has to find the corners there.
Oh, he will absolutely be replaying that miss in his head.
For sure. But those two moments, the Gabriel block and the Lookman chance, those were the red flashing lights that forced Mikel Arteta's hand.
Arteta realizes the midfield is drowning, and he makes incredibly drastic changes to stop the bleeding. I mean, for a match of this magnitude, it's wild. He takes off his captain, Odegaard. He takes off Gabriel Martinelli, Noni Madueke, and his goal scorer, Gyökeres.
A massive shakeup.
Yeah, and he brings on Ebereki Eze, Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Jesus, and Leandro Trossard. 4 players at once.
It is a massive gamble to disrupt your team so heavily while under immense pressure, but Arteta recognized that trying to pass their way out of Atletico's man-to-man press was a trap.
Because Odegaard is an elite passer, but under that physical suffocation, passing just isn't enough, right?
Exactly. You need someone who can break the lines by carrying the ball.
Which brings us to Ebereki Eze. This is a question for you listening. We always think of subs as just providing fresh legs for tired players. But didn't Eze essentially change the emotional weather of the game?
Oh, he absolutely did. Eze was the lockpick Arsenal desperately needed. He has a low center of gravity and the sheer audacity to take a defender on inside his own half.
Yeah, he brought this incredible footwork and aggression. It allowed Arsenal to finally hold on to the ball and calm the tempo down in the final 10 to 15 minutes.
Right. When Eze receives the ball under a heavy press, his first instinct isn't to look for a safe backward pass. It's to turn and glide past the first man.
And once you beat that first man and a high press, the whole system basically crumbles, doesn't it?
That is the exact mechanism. A high press requires all 11 players to push up cohesively. If Eze dribbles past one player, suddenly Atletico has a man out of position.
So someone else has to leave their man to cover.
Exactly. The next defender steps out of line, which opens a gap, and it triggers a domino effect that forces the entire pressing structure to collapse and retreat.
Eze single-handedly pushed Atletico back into their own half just by refusing to be bullied off the ball.
It really highlights a newfound maturity in this Arsenal squad. I mean, a few years ago, if a team disrupted their rhythm like Atletico did, they might have crumbled and conceded 3 goals.
Yeah, they would have completely fallen apart.
But here, they showed the ability to suffer defensively, absorb the onslaught, and, grind out a result even when they are clearly being outplayed.
Learning how to suffer is basically a prerequisite for winning the Champions League. But as we know, high-stakes matches are rarely decided purely by tactical adjustments.
No, they usually come down to razor-thin margins.
Right, and officiating. Which leads us directly into the massive penalty controversies. Let's get into the VAR drama, because this is where the conversation gets incredibly heated.
Oh boy.
Yes, it does. We'll start with Atletico's penalty, the one that leveled the score. Llorente takes a shot, and it strikes Ben White's hand inside the box. Now, the sources note that White's arms were away from his body, making his silhouette unnaturally bigger. VAR reviews it, awards it, and Julián Alvarez scores to make it 1-1.
By the letter of the current laws, there really isn't much debate on that specific call.
It feels harsh, though.
It feels incredibly harsh on defenders who just use their arms for natural balance. But it is one of the few areas where the application of the rule has remained relatively consistent. If the arm is out, it's a penalty.
Fair enough. But the real controversy, the moment that has managers, pundits, and fans completely divided, happened in the dying moments of the match.
The Eze challenge.
Yes. Eze wins the ball in the Atletico penalty area. David Hanko comes sliding in for a challenge, and his studs make contact with Eze's studs. The referee is standing right there, sees the contact, and points straight to the spot. A late penalty to Arsenal.
A monumental decision in real time.
But then VAR intervenes. They instruct the referee to go over to the pitch-side monitor. And while he's staring at the slow-motion replays, Diego Simeone and the entire Atletico coaching staff are heavily pressuring him from the touchline, yelling, pointing.
It was absolute chaos on the sideline.
And ultimately, the referee overturns his own on-field decision. No penalty.
The fallout from this has been immense, and it really strikes at the very philosophy of what VAR is actually supposed to be.
I mean, as a frustrated fan, I have to ask, if the referee saw it and gave it, and there was actual contact, how does VAR justify calling it a clear and obvious error?
That is the multi-million-dollar question.
Critics, including Mikel Arteta and commentators like Steve McManaman and Steven Gerrard, are arguing furiously about consistency. Because the facts are clear, the contact was soft, but the contact was real. It wasn't a dive. People are also pointing out that Arsenal received a very similar soft penalty in a past match against Bayer Leverkusen.
And that Leverkusen comparison is exactly why players and managers feel so frustrated. The problem isn't the technology itself, it's the philosophical application.
Right.
VAR was originally implemented to catch black and white factual errors. Did the ball cross the goal line? Was the player definitively offside? Those are objective facts.
But assessing the softness of a foul is completely subjective.
Yeah, precisely the issue. When you ask high-definition, slow-motion cameras to judge the subjective severity of stud-to-stud contact, you are asking a machine to measure human intent and force.
And slow motion always makes contact look different than it does in real speed.
Always. If we look at this impartially, the contact between Hanko and Eze was light. Many football purists argue that a touch that light just shouldn't decide a Champions League semifinal.
But the rule book doesn't have a specific measurement for substantial contact, right?
Yeah.
A foul is a foul. If you are re-refereeing subjective decisions, it completely strips the on-field official of their authority.
It does. It creates this feeling that the threshold for clear and obvious shifts depending on who happens to be sitting in the VAR booth that day.
And seeing Simeone literally screaming in the referee's ear at the monitor just adds to this perception that decisions are being influenced by the intense atmosphere rather than objective video evidence.
It undeniably highlights the immense pressure placed on these officials. Making a highly subjective call, overturning your own initial instinct, all while standing feet away from a notoriously fiery manager and 60,000 hostile fans. It requires immense mental fortitude.
Yeah, I don't envy them at all.
Whether the decision was right or wrong in the end, The intervention of VAR on subjective on-field calls just creates a profound feeling of inconsistency for everyone involved.
So after the tactical chess match of the first half, the heavy metal chaos of the second half, and these massive VAR debates, we are left with a 1-1 draw.
Perfectly balanced.
Heading into the second leg, the sources suggest Arsenal will actually be the slightly happier of the two camps.
I would agree with that. The structural advantage definitely shifts to Arsenal now. They secured an away draw at a brutal venue, and crucially, they managed the minutes of key players.
Right, by subbing them out early.
Yes, they didn't have to play Bukayo Saka or Ebereki Eze for the full 90 minutes. They will have much fresher legs returning to the Emirates.
But, counting out Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid is always a mistake. They thrive on being the underdogs, and they prove they have the sheer intensity to completely shatter Arsenal's rhythm.
The second leg is perfectly poised. It's going to be a classic.
It really is. But before that kicks off, I want to leave you, listening to this, with a final thought to mull over. We spend so much time analyzing the passing networks, the overloads, the tactical adjustments. But when the margins between victory and defeat are this razor thin, how much will the pure mental battle, and specifically the intense pressure placed on referees by managers on the touchline, ultimately decide who goes to the Champions League final? Yeah, thank you. See you soon with upcoming matches.